Hello everyone, this is Gaganpreet Kaur from PMG Engineering, and the topic of my presentation is effective professional communication. So let's begin. The agenda of my presentation is what is effective communication, types and modes of communication, communication cycle, 7 C's of communication, barriers, and how to overcome barriers of communication. Now, what is effective communication? But before that, I want to explain you what is communication. Communication is something which is done between two persons, like one is sender and another one is the receiver. Now, what is effective communication? As you can see, I've already mentioned some of the points. Number one is properly encoded, means the sender has properly encoded the message. Number two is delivered through an appropriate channel, means the medium which he has chosen to send the message is the appropriate one. Received means the receiver has received the message, properly decoded and understood. This is the last point and the most important point, means the receiver has received the message and he has properly understood it. Now, if you want to make the communication effective, all these mentioned points need to be there. If these points are not there, your communication is not going to be the effective communication. Now, as I've already explained you earlier also, there are always two persons. One is sender and another one is the receiver. Sender is the one who sends the messages and receiver is the one who receives the messages. As you can see, I mentioned one more point that in business organization, communication can be only effective when the data or the information is properly distributed among the employees. If the employees has not understood the data or the information that is given to them, they cannot work accordingly. Point number two is modes of communication. As you can see, the diagram clearly indicates that there are four modes of communication: writing, speaking, listening, and reading. What is effective speaking? Effective speaking is when you are confident, when you are speaking confidently, clear, when the words or the sentence that you are saying is clear. Eye contact, you make a good eye contact when you are speaking with someone. Body language must be good. What is effective listening? Pay attention. Always pay attention when someone is speaking with you. First listen, then speak. This is one of the main points. Like first listen and then speak. Eye contact. You should make a good eye contact when you are listening also. Effective reading, fluent, vocabulary, clear and loud. Like fluent. You should be fluent when you are reading something. Your vocabulary must be good. The words that are there in vocab must be clear. Clear and loud. Whenever you speak or read something, that must be clear and loud. So the next person who is listening to you understood it properly. Effective writing, spelling, grammar, and punctuations. These are the main points. When you write something, you should take care of all these points. Presentation, how you present what you have written must be clear. Words wise, the words that you are have you written are good and appropriate. Now, the point number three is types of workplace communication. There are many types of workplace communication, but here I am going to explain you four types of workplace communication: verbal, body, phone, and written communication. Now, point number one is verbal communication. Verbal communication is the use of words to convey a message, and some of the best examples of verbal communications are written and oral. Now, body communication. Body communication is the use of physical behavior, expressions, and mannerism to communicate. Like when you are outside somewhere or when you are in a meeting, how you talk, how you sit, how you stand, all these things comes in body communication. Point number third is phone communication. Nowadays, it is so easy to communicate with anyone anywhere around the world. It is just a matter of call or text. Like if you want to talk with your friend or relative who is outside somewhere abroad, you can just call them or text them without the use of physical connections. Now at last there is written communication. Written communication is the communication which is done in written. Like you write emails, letters, circulars, anything which is done in written, it is known as written communication. Now our next topic is communication cycle or steps. Now the step number one is source, step number two is encoding, step number three is channel or the medium, step number four is decoding, and step number fifth is receiver, and the step number six is feedback. Now, I'm briefly going to explain you what are the steps in communication cycle. Number one step is sender. Sender is the person who starts the process of communication, means the person who is ready to send a message. Number two is encoding. Encoding is the second steps in the process of communication. Encoding means that how you are going to convey a message, means the thoughts that comes into your mind, like this is the message, this is the tone I'm going to use. Is if you are happy, your tone would be totally different, and if you are sad, your tone will be totally different. So this means how you are going to encode a message. Now step number third is message. Like when you have encoded a message, you know like what are you going to write. Now message is the written part. The written part that you have, that you are ready to send, is known as the message. Now step number four is channel or medium. When you have typed your message, now this is the time to send the message, and you can send the message through a proper channel or medium. There are multiple types of mediums like newspapers, telephones, emails, telegrams. You can use one of the appropriate channel to convey your message. Now step number fifth is receiver. The process of communication is incomplete without a receiver. Means if there is no receiver, there is no process of communication. Step number six is decoding. Decoding means no matter how well the message is crafted, means no matter how well the sender has sent the message, but if the receiver is not able to understand it, means decoded, it is of no use. Decoding here means understanding the message. Step number seven is feedback. Feedback is the seventh step and one of the most important steps in the process of communication. When the receiver has properly decoded the message, this is the time to send the feedback. Like, yes, I have understood the message. But if the receiver is not able to decode the message, he will not give any feedback. And the process of communication will start all over again from the sender. Now, our next topic is 7 C's of communication. Like, what are 7 C's of communication? The 7 C's of communications are courteous, concise, complete, considerate, concrete, clear, and correct. Now, I'm going to briefly explain you all these points. Point number one is clear. The message should be clear and easily understandable. Means the message that you are going to send should be clear and easily understandable so that the receiver could easily understand it and sure about it. Step number second is correct. The message should be correct, means you should use a correct language. There should be no grammatical errors and spelling errors. The message should be exact and well timed. Point number third is complete. The message should be complete, means the message should be completely written. Like all the relevant information should be there in the message so that it can give answers to all the questions of the receiver. Concrete. Point number four. The communication should be concrete, which means the message should be clear and partially such that no room for misinterpretation is left. Point number fifth is concise. Means the message should be on point. Means no unnecessary information should be added by the sender in the message. It will waste the time of sender also and the receiver also, and receiver will find it hard to understand the message. So the message should be concise. Step number six is consideration. The sender must take into consideration to the receiver's opinion, knowledge, mindset, background, etc. in order to have an effective communication. All these points matter when you want to have an effective communication. Step number seven is courteous. It implies that the sender must take into consideration, means the sender should make this point notice, like what he is going to send to receiver. It should not be hard. Like when the sender is sending a message to the receiver, you should show some respect. So like the receiver, when he got the message, he should not feel like someone is shouting at it or the message is not clear and using some hard words. Now our next topic is barriers to communication. Point number one in barriers to communication is information overload. Like when you are in a meeting or you are with your boss, there's a lot of information that travels, and a lot of information can cause a lot of confusion. So the information should be clear and on point. If the information is clear and clearly given to employees, they can work effectively and efficiently. Organizational structure barriers is the second point. Companies with unclear structures can make communication difficult. This is very obvious. If your structure is unclear, it will cause barriers to communication. If a company has a complex structure with a lot of management levels, like there are a lot of levels in the company and the organization, it will also cause barriers to communication. Information will be lost. You will not got the proper information. It travels through the each level of hierarchy. There are a lot of levels and it can cause a lot of confusion. Point number three is too much information. Like I've previously also explained you, too much information is not required. Only the point-to-point information is required so that the sentence can clearly be understood and people can work upon it. Step number four is semantic and language barriers. Semantic and language barriers are also common barriers. Like and a speaker understands a different language and listener speaks a different language. This is most commonly happens. You should always speak one language which you both understand, and then the communication will be more effective. Point number 5 is poor listening skill. Workplace communication isn't just about talking, it is about listening also. One must have good listening skills. To have good communication in the workplace, it's important for managers and employees to learn how to listen. If you listen properly, you can work properly. If you are not listening properly and not understanding anything, you cannot work properly. Now, the last topic is overcoming barriers to communication, like how one can overcome two barriers to communication. The point number 1 is check whether it is a good place and time. Always ask the person or check the place it is good or not. Being clear and using the language that you both can understood. Always use the language which you both knows. Communicating one thing at a time. Always communicate one by one. Check whether the person is understood correctly. After you communicate something to someone, always ask that person that he has understood or not. Communicate in a location that is free from distraction. Always communicate at a place which is free from distractions. At last, I would like to thank you all for your valuable time. If you need such more videos in future, please like, share and subscribe PMG Engineering. Thank you.